On the surface, it was just another reckless day. One of those pranks that friends would laugh about for years to come. But what began as a joke with a worm in a tequila glass turned into something much darker. I'm the Gingerbeard Man, and if you're a fan of the macabre, mysterious, and miraculous, told from an African and South African perspective, then you've come to the right place. So, sit down, relax, let's get into today's story. Tammy Engelbert lived in Witpoortjie Mines. It was the 31st of December 2018, and she had made plans to celebrate New Year's Eve with a small group of her friends. It was a cold, rainy morning. Tammy pulled the curtains back just enough to peek outside. The rain fell like a fine mist over her garden. Any other day, she would have welcomed the rain, especially having been such a hot and dry summer, but not on New Year's Eve. She hoped, she prayed, that the rain would ease. However, when she went onto her phone and checked the weather app, it showed that the rain was set in for the rest of the day. Tammy let out a low sigh. She rolled over and closed her eyes. At least the rain was soothing. This helped her drift off back to sleep. 2 hours later, her phone alarm began to ring. Tammy rolled over and looked at her phone. She was surprised to see that it was already 10 a.m. This meant that she had slept a little bit longer than she had intended to. Tammy opened up the WhatsApp group on her phone and started reading through the messages from her friends. Everyone in the group was concerned and was commenting about the rain. However, no one suggested cancelling their plans for that evening. The guys in the group insisted that the rain was no excuse not to have a braai. The girls, they preferred to cook inside. After a bit of back and forth and bickering between the boys and the girls, the group eventually decided that they would stick to their original plan. The guys would braai. They would just do it under the cover of the carport. The girls would stick to their plan as well and make a potato salad and pap. Tammy added in the group that she would also like to make a green salad. She felt like she needed to be a bit more involved in the plans for the evening. Tammy got up and had breakfast, after which she took a long shower and got changed. Tammy wanted to get to the shops early, knowing that the stores would be crowded. Realizing that the Witpoortjie Retail Center wouldn't have everything she needed for the evening, she decided she would make the short trip to the Westgate Shopping Center. Parking was a hassle, and everyone seemed to be gunning for the undercover parking. Tammy, not really afraid of the rain, settled on parking in the open parking lot. She just used the umbrella to walk across the parking lot to the shopping center. The shopping center was busier than usual, which was expected for this time of year. An hour later, she finally paid for parking and left. She stopped at her local KFC for her usual twister with mash and gravy. Back at home, she lay on her bed and fell asleep again. Tammy woke up at around 4 p.m. After shaking off her sleepiness, she set up the speaker and arranged the chairs around the outdoor table under the veranda. She then moved her car from beneath the carport so that the boys would have enough space to braai without getting wet from the rain. Satisfied with her efforts for preparing for the evening, she grabbed herself a Smirnoff Spin from the fridge. She sat down, and she had just taken one sip when her phone began to ring. Her best friend Brittany was on the phone. She was waiting outside. Tammy grabbed an umbrella and went to open up for Brittany. Once Brittany had pulled in, she directed her to an undercover parking spot and helped her carry the salads and drinks inside. By 6 p.m., the rest of her friends had arrived. Tammy connected her phone to the Bluetooth speaker, and the girls, after a few drinks, joined the boys, sitting around the fire, just talking, undeterred by the rain. The ladies urged the boys to get the food on the braai early. Luckily, by 8 p.m., everyone was able to sit under the veranda and enjoy dinner together. Afterwards, Tammy made space in the lounge and cranked the music up. Everyone began dancing and having a good time. The boys eventually decided they would go swimming in the rain. They were soon joined by the girls. The group splashed around for about an hour before drying themselves off inside and preparing drinks, getting ready to count the new year in. At 10 to 12, they turned the music down and tuned into their favorite radio station, awaiting the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Cheers and laughter filled the room. Everyone shared their best wishes for the new year. The rain had picked up again, but the group was happy to sit outside under the cover of the veranda and talk, playing music softly in the background. After talking for about an hour, they decided to play a drinking game. Tammy, who was normally quite reserved, became bold after a few drinks. They went around the table and everyone shared their New Year's resolution. When it was Tammy's turn, she stood up, swallowed the last of her drink and announced, "This year I'm going to be more adventurous and step out of my comfort zone." The group all chuckled. "Sure," said Fenta, "and I'll be a cover model for Men's Health magazine." Normally, Tammy would let this go. However, the alcohol had given her some Dutch courage. "Fine," she said. "Give me a dare. Anybody, give me a dare. Any dare and I'll do it." The group murmured excitedly. Brittany circled her. "Well, we all know Damien has a crush on you," she said. Tammy started blushing and looked down from Damien. "I dare you to give him a big fat kiss." "No, not that," Tammy said. Damien looked at her and just smiled. "Okay, how about you do a shot instead?" Damien said this with a very sly grin on his face. "We will do it true Mexican style." Tammy looked both relieved and confused at the same time. "And what exactly does that mean?" she asked. Before Damien had a chance to speak, Fenta stood up and blurted out, "It means there's a worm in the glass." Tammy went from looking intrigued to absolutely disgusted, and her face clearly showed it. You're serious?" she asked. Damien just smiled and nodded his head, taking Tammy's silence as a sign of defeat. Fenta gently nudged her. "So much for your New Year's resolution, eh?" He began laughing. The group joined in the laughter. They knew Tammy well enough, and they were confident that she had already broken her New Year's resolution. Tammy stood up. Her cheeks were red with anger and embarrassment. "Just give me the shot," she said, all irritated. The group went quiet, and then cheered her on. Damien grabbed the long shot glass and filled it up about 3/4 of the way with tequila, setting it down on the table for the whole group to see. "Fenta, worm me," he said. Fenta dug into his bag and pulled out a shallow Tupperware filled with dirt, revealing the tiny worm inside. Tammy stared at it, a mixture of embarrassment and apprehension. Her stomach began to churn. "And where's your worm?" she said, looking at Damien. Damien gave her another sly smile. "Sorry, only one worm to go around tonight," he said. "But it's okay if you're too scared to do the shot. We all understand," he said, looking around the table. The others started making chicken sounds. Bok, 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 bok. Tammy grabbed the shot and stood, waiting to take it. Tammy stared at the tiny worm wriggling around in the tequila. Her stomach tightened with nerves. She lifted the shot glass up and gulped it down. Immediately, a strange warmth spread throughout her chest. At first, it was subtle, a faint tickle crawling beneath her skin, like tiny legs scuttling underneath the surface. Tammy laughed nervously, thinking it was just the alcohol. But then, the sensation spread, climbing up her arms, across her shoulders and along her neck. Her friends noticed her sudden pause. Tammy's eyes widened as she pressed her hands to her stomach. Something alive was moving beneath the flesh, wriggling with its own intent. Her fingers twitched involuntarily, flexing, curling unnaturally. The room tilted as panic gnawed at her mind. She stumbled towards the veranda railing, desperate for support. Her reflection in the glass revealed the first horrifying change. Her eyes had darkened at the corners and were bulging slightly, glimmering like the lenses of a fly. Tiny bristles sprouted along her arms and neck, twitching with a life of their own. A violent spasm threw her to the floor. Her fingers thickened, fusing into segmented claw-like shapes. Her rib cage shifted audibly with each breath, kicking and popping as her body warped. The worm writhed inside of her, reshaping her form from within. Her instincts twisted. Crawl, bite, move with unnatural precision. Her friends froze in terror as Tammy tried to scream. Her voice cracked, high-pitched and insect-like. As she spoke, it sounded more like a grotesque blend of a human and an insect. She struggled desperately to maintain control, but the worm's power was overwhelming. By the time she managed to stand back up, her back throbbed with a strange, urgent pressure. All of a sudden, translucent wings pushed out, wet and glimmering, folding over themselves like a newborn fly's wings. Her heartbeat was frantic, but her mind no longer comprehended her own body. The reflection in the glass of her eyes brought a horrifying clarity. Compounded eyes, segmented limbs, twitching. Tammy was gone, replaced by something horrifying and grotesque. A high-pitched screech erupted from her throat. She was moved with jerky precision, half human, half insect. The worm inside had won in reshaping her in ways that she could not comprehend. This New Year's Eve had become one of nightmares beyond imagination. The worm shared its power from the cursed soil of the Witpoortjie Mines, twisting her into something neither human nor insect. The wings on her back spread open, flinging chunks of flesh and coagulated blood all over her friends. The group stumbled backwards, tipping over chairs and splashing through puddles. Brittany screamed, tears streaming down her cheek in the rain. The creature looked at her and paused, clicking softly. Then in a blur, it flapped its wings and vanished into the dark night. Huddled under the veranda, the friends shivered, not from cold, but from the terror. The Witpoortjie Mines had always seemed like a legend, but the truth was darker, far worse. The soil was poisoned, alive with unnatural forces. The night became a memory of horror, a New Year's Eve no one would ever forget. Tammy was gone, never to be seen again. Somewhere out in the mines, another worm stirred, ready for whatever or whoever came next. So that's going to do it for today's story, guys. If you enjoyed the story and want some more of that, hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all the latest videos I drop. Turn on the notification bell so that you are notified. Until next time, remember, the human world and the insect world are not meant to mix. And when they do, the consequences can be horrific. Stay safe. Stay curious. God bless.